Hi again. I said I would read you some excerpts from The Infidel, the first book in the Condottiero series, and which is part of the bigger Kingmaker saga. So here it is, The Infidel. And I'd like to read you from about 2/3 of the way through the book in chapter 12. I hope you'll enjoy it. Lara felt hands shaking her, but still she clung to sleep. "Lara, Lara, you must wake up." It was a familiar voice that called her. Lara opened her eyes to candlelight and the face of her abbess, Mother Joanna. "Joanna!" Lara's surprise shook the remnants of sleep from her brain, but before she could utter another word, her mistress bid her be quiet. "Listen to me, child, you must dress quickly. Here, put this cloak on over your habit. We are going on a journey. Be quick, we'll be waiting outside." She was gone before Lara could phrase a question. As quickly as she could manage, she dressed and brushed her hair. The cloak Joanna had left for her was lined with fur and wrapped her body in its ermine folds. Without a candle to light her way, Lara stumbled through the dormitory, trying not to wake her sisters from their cells. At last she found her way outside and felt cold drops on her face. It was raining steadily, the moon obscured by heavy clouds. 3 figures, all cloaked, awaited her on horseback. The shadowy figure of Mother Joanna beckoned her to make haste. Lara gathered up her skirts and ran to them. A man, she could not tell who it was, dismounted and helped her onto her steed. It was the first time in a long while that she had felt a man's hands on her body, and she resisted a shudder at his touch. One of the figures moved to the front and gave the signal to move off. Lara manoeuvred her horse so that she was next to Joanna. The man who had helped her up rode behind them. When they reached the pier, a barge was awaiting them. Silently they dismounted, leading their horses quietly onto the barge. Almost immediately the bargemen cast off. There were 4 of them, all pushing the barge along through the Venetian lagoon with thrusts of their long barge poles. Even in the gloomy haze of the night's rain, she could see it. The lights of the city glowed eerily as the dome of St. Mark's came into view. She had never been there, although she knew that's where he had lived. La Serenissima, they called her. Seeing her rise up out of the water, bathed in the lights of her palaces and cathedrals, she looked like a sleeping goddess, and every bit as serene as her name implied. Lara could understand how Jean had been seduced by this city, why he had made her his home. As the barge moved even closer, the aura of her nightlight seemed to envelop Lara also, and she felt herself seduced by the beauty of the siren. It was said Venice called home all her sailors. Lara prayed she had the power to call Jean home. The dockside loomed closer, and the bargemen manoeuvred their vessels into position. Moored all around them were ships of every description, from the small Middle Eastern single-masted dromons to the impressive tri-reamed galleys of the imperial fleet. The water was alive with the sounds of these vessels. The spirits of men lost and men living whispered to her, their voices floating on the seaward breezes that made sails billow and flap and made her head spin. This was freedom. This was the world outside, where he had lived while she was a prisoner. She wanted to fill her lungs with the smell of it, putrid or otherwise. This was living, and they would never make her go back to that island. She would kill or be killed first. They disembarked and led their mounts down the jetty until the city itself rose up all around them. Again they were led by one of the cloaked men, while the other followed behind. Sister Joanna whispered something to her about the city being dangerous at night and told her to stay close. But this was all she said, and Lara dared not open her mouth lest she shatter the eerie silence of the place. What were they about? Surely Joanna could not fear for her life. After all, she was now an abbess, not just a mere nun, she reasoned. Who would dare harm such a woman? As they made their way down the back streets, across canals, through dingy alleyways, Lara looked up at the windows of the palaces and tenement buildings they passed. Here and there a window was lit by lamp or candle, and the occupants were revealed as silhouettes. Although it must have been the 4th hour and well before dawn, Lara was surprised at the number of people still awake, enjoying each other's company. How good it must be to be able to sleep or not as you liked, Lara thought. She took deep breaths, filling her lungs with the stuff of freedom. Perhaps soon the bells of prime and nons would no longer rule her. Perhaps she would not be forced to kneel every day and eat gruel and bread with her sisters. Perhaps soon she would lie in a real bed, perhaps even with him.